researchers have discovered a Linux kernel exploit technique called SLUBStick that can turn minor heap vulnerabilities into near certain ability to read and write arbitrary memory. How does this technique work, and which versions of Linux are vulnerable? Attackers can use CSS to bypass Microsoft 365's anti-phishing feature, which can just make it easier for malicious emails to slip in and for users to get phished. How can people protect themselves from these phishing emails when they've come to rely on the anti-phishing features Microsoft offers? If you use Roundcube Webmail, there's a new vulnerability that could allow hackers to steal your emails and passwords with just one maliciously crafted email, which just sounds like a normal phishing email. But how do these vulnerabilities specifically exploit Roundcube? And finally, threat actors are feverishly exploiting a critical progress WhatsUp Gold vulnerability to gain initial access to corporate networks. What measures can admins take to protect their WhatsUp Gold servers from active exploitation? You're listening to the Daily Decrypt. Cybersecurity researchers have discovered a new Linux kernel exploit called SLUBStick that could allow attackers to elevate a simple heap vulnerability into full control over their memory. SLUBStick exploits a timing side channel in the memory allocator, making attacks way more reliable. And in fact, these researchers predict there's a success rate of over 99% for commonly used caches. This new technique targets Linux kernel versions 5.19 and 6.2, using security flaws like double free, use after free, and out of bounds write to escalate privileges to root. And you might think that some fancy security features like KASLR and SMAP will save you, but SLUBStick bypasses these defenses by modifying kernel data for arbitrary memory reads and writes. However, for this attack to work, it requires the presence of a heap vulnerability in the Linux kernel. And it also requires that an unprivileged user has code execution capabilities. But in the case of those two things, the unprivileged user can execute code on your system that could use SLUBStick to break out of containers and wreak havoc. If you'd like more information on this novel attack, check out the link in the show notes below, which will help direct you to the actual GitHub repo of the exploit itself. Microsoft 365 has this cool feature that when you receive an email from a user that you don't regularly receive emails from, it'll put a banner at the top that says, hey, you don't regularly receive emails from this person. Are you confident that this is a legitimate email? And what I hate about banners is, yes, they're supposed to be helping you identify malicious emails, but we come to rely on them. And so if someone figures out how to bypass them or make them not show up on the emails, the end user will trust that an email is safe when it's really malicious. So that's exactly what happened. Researchers have figured out a way to manipulate the CSS from within the body of the email to hide that banner. So the feature I described in Microsoft 365 is called First Contact Safety Tip and can be bypassed by adding in a little bit of CSS code within the HTML of the email itself. And in fact, the code is so simple, I'm baffled that it's even allowed. You just simply hide any anchor tags within CSS. And then you just simply set the transparency of the container or div so that it essentially just blends into the white background of an email. And to add some insult to injury, after attackers hide this banner, they add the little certificate and the lock to the email so that you're further tricked into thinking this is a legit email. And all I have to offer you is the basic advice of being careful when you're clicking links in emails. But I'm just so confused why companies allow HTML in emails. It's not that important. I understand your branding, but the typewriter font in plain text is pretty cool too. So if you're in a position to make decisions within your company and how your email infrastructure works, and you happen to be listening to this podcast, can you let me know why you have HTML in your emails? I work for a cybersecurity company and we allow HTML as well. Let's just get rid of that and break out all hyperlinks and boom, we've solved phishing. What am I missing here? Speaking of emails, if you use Roundcube Webmail, which I've personally never heard of, there's a new security flaw that could let hackers steal your emails and passwords with one specially crafted email. But what differs this from a normal phishing email where you click a link is this one uses JavaScript so that you don't even have to click the link. The user simply has to open the email, and the attacker can run this malicious JavaScript that can give them full access to the email. They can send, they can read, they can download all the contacts, and they actually get a persistent foothold in the browser that survives restarts so that when the password is entered again, they can grab that as well. And now this is one of those cases where researchers have discovered this vulnerability and are withholding specific technical details so that users will have the time to patch to the most up-to-date version of Roundcube Webmail. Because yes, it has been patched and fixed, but we want to make sure that users have time to implement that patch. So run, don't walk, go update that. And finally, hackers are exploiting a severe vulnerability in Progress WhatsUp Gold, a popular network monitoring tool. So if you're running versions 23.1.2 or older, this will concern you. The flaw is dubbed CVE 2024-4885, and it allows attackers to execute remote code on your server without authentication. Essentially, they can take control of the whole system. The vulnerability impacts the recurring report endpoint, and proof of concept exploits are already out there being used. So if possible, it's never advised to have your servers facing the public internet. But if your server is exposed and you do run this service, hackers can gain initial access to your entire network, causing data breaches, installing malware, or, anything that attackers want to do in your network. So make sure you update to the latest version, 23.1.3, which does fix this flaw. And if possible, lock down your server as much as possible by only allowing trusted IP addresses to access, and use firewalls to block ports 9642 and 9643.
This has been the Daily Decrypt. If you found your key to unlocking the digital domain, show your support with a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It truly helps us stand at the frontier of cyber news. Don't forget to connect on Instagram or catch our episodes on YouTube. Until next time, keep your data safe and your curiosity alive.